Greetings, 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 greetings. It is I, King Clifford Jefferson, a son of Godfrey, the fifth Count of Anjou, the son of Folk, the ruler of Jerusalem, and the reincarnation of King Edgar the Peaceful, which we know here at the third typical Prince of England as Jesus Christ, or the Vicar of Christ, or Melchizedek, known also as the King of Righteousness, going all the way back to the time of King Solomon. It is January the 31st, 2025, which is equivalent to the birth year 2975. I greet you in the name of my Queen Sister Galveston from the House of Galveston. I greet you in the name of Archbishop Belmont from the House of Belmont. I greet you in the name of Count Searcy from the House of Searcy, as well as all of the officers of the Third Temple English Church of England, a reformation of the Second Temple of England, a reincarnation of the First Temple of England, which is actually the Temple of Jerusalem. We represent the King of Jerusalem, also known as the King of Peace. Once again, this lesson is called Who Are the True Jews? Who are the true Jews? That's a very important question that we all need to ask ourselves. Not from a religious standpoint, but from a historical standpoint. And to qualify the historical standpoint, there must be a legal validity. There must be some valid, legal, lawful validity. Greetings, Countess Searcy from the House of Searcy. Glad you was able to join us today. Who are the true Jews? Who are the true Jews? Okay. That is the question today. The true Jews, the English word Jew spelled J-E-W, are the Negroes. The true Jews are the Negroes. When I say Negro, I mean those who are descendants from Spain. Yes, sir, it's going to be on point. The true Jews are the original inhabitants of Spain. Okay? In the Roman time, it was called Hispania. All right? It was also called the Iberian Peninsula. It was also called Al-Andalus. Okay? But that is the territory and the inhabitants of the true Jews. Okay? It's very, very, very important that y'all pay close attention as a result of the reconstruction of the history of the true Jews from Spain. As you can see in my thumbnail, as you can see in back of me. The reconstruction of the history of the true Jews. When I say the true Jews, I'm talking about the Jews dealing with the ancient Israelites. Okay? The children of God. All right? So welcome all of you today. You don't want to miss this one. You're never going to hear another lesson like this in your life. All right? Who are the true Jews? And we're going to trace, instead of starting from ancient history, we're going to take ourselves from the present all the way back to the ancient origin of the true Jews. Okay? So everyone hold on to your seats. All right? Hold on to your seats. We're going to start from now and go back in history to the ancient Jews, which are nothing more than the ancient inhabitants of Spain. Okay? The ancient inhabitants of Spain. They were called the Sephardic Jews. Okay? Of the inhabitants of Spain. Very, very important because you got three classes of Jews we're going to talk about today who claim to be the children of God. All right. Majority of those people claim to be the children of God based upon religious theocracy. Okay. But no historical proof to validate that theocracy, as well as laws that can be applied today to support that theocracy. Okay? It's very important to grasp what it is that I have for you today. So without further ado, let's get started with this marvelous lesson. Let's start here. Let's start with my family. I've shown it already. I'm going to show it again. Very, very important. Archbishop constantly talks about everyone knowing your genealogy. Okay? Knowing your genealogy sets the standard. Not going to stay too long on the family ancestry, but I'm only coming here to make a point. Like, share, and subscribe. All gift donations, common soakers are welcome. Send it to the Third Typical Church of England or $ Clifford Jefferson L. We appreciate you. Okay? As you can see on the screen, let me blow it up so you all can see it. It would be no justice to not show you my grandfather's picture. So let me show you him again. Okay, he is a Spanish native Anglo-Saxon Berber. Not Native American, not Native Indian, not Native Indian, nor Native American, but a Native Anglo-Saxon Berber. Okay? This is my grandfather, Leotis Jefferson. Okay? This is my grandfather, Leotis Jefferson. This is very important. I constantly talk about him all the time because we need to understand that we are what our forefathers were without doubt or contradiction. As you can see, the characteristics of my grandfather, featuristics, is native. Okay? Native, uh, falsely called Indian, okay? Falsely called Native American, but native for the sake of identifying with a group of people, it would be the Spaniards, okay? So my grandfather is a native Spaniard, okay, of Spanish descent, okay, who were actually Berbers, who was actually ancient Jews. Y'all better pay attention. Y'all better pay attention. Let me show you another picture of my grandfather and my grandmother. My grandmother and my grandfather, Bruce Jefferson and Leotis Jefferson. Okay? Classified as Negro. Okay? Now we are called black, but we were classified as Negro. Okay? Very important that you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, because when you do that, you throw away your descent. You throw away your birthright as a result of a mistaken identity. Okay, as you can see, my grandfather, he ain't walking around with no feathers in his head or with one of the skirts, all right, and cloth shoes. He has on a suit, okay? And my grandfather was born in 1913. Okay, he was born in Marion County, Mississippi. My grandmother was born in Jew, Mississippi. Okay, but as you can see, his characteristic or his feature is of Native, okay, which you identify as Indian or Native American, but he is in fact a native Berber, Anglo-Saxon Berber, whose ancestors are from the territory known as the Iberian Peninsula, which is the area most originated with what we call Sephardic Jews. Okay, Sephardic Jews. I'm going to prove it. Pay attention. All right. All right. If I scroll down, my great grandfather is Willie Tube Jefferson, and my great great grandmother is Ida Rideout. My grandfather is Leotis Jefferson. My grandmother is Bruce Jefferson. My great grandfather is William Tube Jefferson, and my great grandmother is Ida Rideout. Okay, and these are their children: Paul Jefferson, Leotis Jefferson, Nina Ruth Jefferson. Okay, the one we just seen in the picture. Ellis Neal Owens, Ruby Lee Jefferson, Paul Jefferson, Cornelia Maggie. This is all my family. Roscoe Jefferson, Rosie Lee Teller, Verlene Jefferson. So is that patrilineal name, Jefferson, is what's important. And they all descended from my great, great, great grandfather, Richard Jefferson, and Emily Stovall. Once again, they were married. Richard Jefferson and Emily Stovall, they were married. So let's look at the origin of the patrilineal and matrilineal surnames, all right, of my great 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 grandfather and grandmother, while they over here in what they call North America, along what we call the Mississippi River, okay? And the Mississippi River was inhabited by Spanish, Anglo Native American Berbers before the Spanish conquest or before the Spanish colonization, when the so-called identity of what we call Indians came about, or Native American Indians come about, because they all adopted the culture of what we call the Anglo-Saxon Berber. Okay? They accepted the culture of the Anglo-Saxon Berber, who were Negroes, because why? The word Negro is originated from Spain and the territory known as Castile. Okay? Castile. All right. But first, let's look at the last name Jefferson and the last name Stovall and see the connection between Jefferson and Stovall. Because you see, my paternal and maternal grandmother and father were married with two different surnames. Okay. So let's check out the surname Jefferson. Salvation from the cross, a cruz salus. England, Wales, and Ireland. Etymology of the word Jefferson. The Jefferson surname is a patronymic name that comes from the personal name Godfrey or Godfrey. These names appear in Old English as Geoffrey, in Old French as Geoffroy or Geoffroy. The surname Jefferson makes use of the patronymic suffix son, which has superseded all other such suffixes in popularity by the 14th century and was most common in north of Britain. This suffix was sometimes abbreviated to just S. The origin of the name was found in where? Staffordshire. So that's the origin of my surname. The origin of my grandmother, great 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 grandmother, surname is Stovall. So see the origin of that surname. Because my great 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 grandfather and great 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 grandmother were married, but they had two separate surnames. Stovall. Stovall has three family crests and coats of arms. His origin is in England and in Ireland. We're concerned with England, okay? Because my ancestors are Anglo-Saxon Berbers. They're not Native American Indians. They're not Native Americans. They're native Anglo-Saxon Berbers who descended from the English and the Spanish, as well as the French, who all originated in what we call the territory known as the Iberian Peninsula, which is the home of the Sephardic Jews. Okay, it is the home of the Sephardic Jews, going all the way back to King Solomon. Okay, going all the way back to King Solomon. Y'all better keep a dialogue of this. The surname Stovall was first found in Gloucestershire of Somerset, where they held a family seat from ancient times as lords. You hear that? As lords. That's the what we call Annos Dominos, in the year of our Lord. So this is why they were called lords of the manor. West Stowell and Wiltshire, and north now known as Alton Prior. This place name means stony spring or stream from the Old English stand in well. Somerset is the oldest location dating back to the Domesday Book. And we're going to talk about not the Doomsday Book, but the Dooms Book, which was the book created by Alfred the Great, who unified all the Berber tribes, also known as barbarian tribes, based upon the noble title and not based upon an action. All right. He unified these tribes, which were Berber, all right, back in 886. All right. And they were all a part of the Anglo Saxon kingdom of Berbers. So the first record of the family was Godfrey de Stonewall or Stovall, because the name Stovall is also pronounced Stowall, okay? In Somerset. Edward III recorded it during the first reign of King Edward III. And King Edward III was the descendant of John, and John was the son of Henry II, and Henry II was the son of Godfrey, the fifth kind of Manju, the son of Folk, the ruler of Jerusalem. Did y'all hear what I said? The ruler of Jerusalem. When Folk the Fifth ruled Jerusalem, his son Godfrey the Fifth, kind of Anjou, father Henry II, went on to rule what we call Anjou. Okay, on the Iberian Peninsula, the home of the Sephardic Jew. Okay, we must understand that. So we see from the present day of my ancestors going all the way back to my great 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 grandfather in 1859 at the time of slavery. Okay, at the time of slavery, my grandfather was a free man, okay? And on his birth certificate, they classify him as a Negro, okay? As a Negro, like we are all classified as Negro. So what's important is that you must really do the investigation about the word Negro and connect that to what's going on with the Spanish Empire, as well as connect that to our ancestors going all the way back to what we call Africa. So how we do that? We're going to use one of the highest respect I got for one of my ancestors, which was Frederick Douglass. We're going to use him, all right? Because he was an Anglo-Saxon. To get our narrative. Before we do that, though, let's go here. Just to squash things, okay? Just keep it going. The 5 civilized tribes, okay? Because you can truly see my great 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 grandfather, as well as my great grandfather, as well as my grandfather, had the features of a native, all right, and I more associate him with the Spanish more than I do what we call the Native American or the Native American Indian. Okay, there's a reason for that. Let's find out why. Okay, let's find out why. The term five civilized tribes was applied, and we're still talking about the Jews, okay? The ancient Sephardic Jews, okay? The ancient Negroes, the ancient Spanish, which are all the same people, which are actually the proper name for them. In this present day, it's called Berber because that's who we were in our former. The term five civilized tribes was applied by the United States government in the early federal period of the history of the United States to five major Native American nations in the Southeast: the Cherokee, the Chickasaw, the Choctaw, the Muskogee, and the Seminole. Now listen what I say, brothers and sisters. Listen. The five civilized tribes which was applied by the United States government in the early federal period of the history of the United States to the five major Native American nations in the Southeast was the Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Muskogee, and Seminole. White Americans, you hear this? White Americans classified them as civilized, not Anglo-American. You hear me? Not Anglo-Americans, but white Americans classified them as civilized because they had adopted attributes of the Anglo-American culture, not the white American culture, but the Anglo-American culture. They didn't say American Anglo culture. They said Anglo-American culture, which is different from white American culture because white is a classification and a status based upon the citizenship as declared by the Naturalization Act of 1790. Okay? Of 1790. And it said that the five civilized tribes adopted the attributes of the Anglo culture. All right? So if they adopted the culture of the Anglo people, Anglo people, and I say Anglo because Saxon is suspect, okay, of the Anglo people because we are in the Anglo spirit. Then that means that if the prior to that civilizing from the culture, that means that white Americans must have been civilized by the culture as well. Okay, white Americans must have been civilized by the Anglo culture as well. Does that make sense to everybody? Y'all can say hi to everybody later on. Does that make sense to everybody? If white America classified the uncivilized tribes as civilized tribes, all right, as a result of the Anglo-American culture, it didn't say the American Anglo culture. It said the Anglo-American culture. And Anglo must have been here before America because America didn't start till the white people got here. Okay? It didn't start till the white people got here. All right? And their status was based upon the Naturalization Act of 1790. Let's look at that real quick before we go back in time. Yes, I'm going to take you by the hand. Does that make sense to everybody who's watching? Give me a thumbs up in the chat line. If that makes sense to everybody, please give me a thumbs up in the chat line so I know that you're following me. The Naturalization Act of 1790, enacted March 26, 1790, was a law of the United States Congress that set the first uniform rule for granting of United States citizenship by naturalization. The law limited naturalization to free white persons of good character. Okay? Free white persons of good character. You must understand what's going on. Okay? You must understand what's going on. All right. So if the five civilized tribes adopted the culture of the Anglo-Saxons or parts of the Anglo, okay, and then as declared by the white Americans, okay, because white Americans didn't say they were Anglo-Saxon, because if so, they would have mentioned it in the Naturalization Act. They didn't say that in the Naturalization Act. It only meant dealing with the color of your skin, okay? The color of your skin, okay? But yet they still living off the spirit of the Anglo culture, which civilized them, but yet they left out the nationality of the Anglo people for a reason. Why? Because that's not them. Okay? That's not them. Now let's validate it's not them based upon the color of your skin, which they declared in the Naturalization Act of 1790. Okay? All right, for white Americans, not Anglo American, but white American, okay, which civilized the Native American is which where you get those Native American tribes, okay, which they just said they were uncivilized until they adopted, everyone said, the Anglo culture, not the Anglo American culture, because if it wasn't for the white people, you would not have no American culture. It would just be Anglo culture. Does that make sense to everybody? I hope so. If it don't, God save your soul. Okay? All right. Let's qualify that with Enray Ahmad Hassan for all those who still don't get it. Still on the topic dealing with the Negro, Spanish, Sephardic Jew. We're still on that topic, all right? But I need to take us back in time, all right? To summarize the approach which must be followed in deciding whether a particular person applying for citizenship is a white person in the meaning of the Naturalization Act of 1790, so yeah, within the meaning of the statute, as interpreted by the Supreme Court. It is necessary to determine first the particular group or racial subdivision to which the individual belongs. And practical effects, a proof of this fact is a matter of, everyone say it, genealogy. Genealogy, an individual who presents an aberration from the color of skin of a group for which he is a member, such as a light-skinned Chinese or Japanese, and that takes you into what we call the United States versus Juan Kimmel Art. And that said that those who are emancipated by the 13th Amendment, enslaved by the 13th Amendment and emancipated by the 14th Amendment, their citizenships must be pursued to the English common law. Okay, not no naturalization process as established by the Naturalization Act of 1790, as well as that by the Immigration Act, which is the cause for everyone to be deported. Because why? They're telling you you are not a citizen. Okay, if you watch my past video, Trump told you. He said that it's exclusively for enslaved. What he said. That was exclusively for enslaved the children of slaves. Okay, it was specifically for the children of slaves, and those slaves were the ones who were emancipated by way of the 14th Amendment when they were enslaved by the 13th Amendment, based upon what we call the Confiscation Act of 1862. We talked about that in my last lecture, and that resulted from hope that they will be emancipated when they assisted the Union in the American Civil War. Okay, in the American Civil War. All right. So this is a matter of genealogy. An individual who presents an aberration from the color of the skin of a group for which he's a member, such as a light-skinned Chinese or Japanese, or a dark-skinned Anglo-Saxon. You hear that? They didn't call themselves white Anglo-Saxon. They just all call themselves white persons or white people. Okay, where the case law specifically mentions dark skin as the characteristics of the nationality of those people known as Anglo-Saxon. They didn't say white skinned, they said dark skinned, but yet they left the light skinned for the Chinese or the Japanese, which according to Juan Kimmel Art, they could not be national citizens. Why? Because citizenship cannot be construed to the English common law of England. Why? Because they were not from English descent. We must understand that. So it says an Anglo-Saxon, i.e., dark-skinned Anglo-Saxon, does not thereby acquire a different status under the Act from other members of its group. Of course, when an individual applying for citizenship has a skin of a different color than is usual for the member of the group from which he claims to come, a strong burden of proof then rests upon him to show by the usual methods of proving genealogy that he is, in fact, a member of that group. So y'all got a lot of work to do if you're saying that you're an English Anglo-Saxon Berber. After the individual has been traced into his group, the second question, which the court must answer, whether the member of the group as a whole or white persons, as Congress understood it in the term in 1790, i.e., the Naturalization Act, when it was first enacted by the legislative statute. In deciding this latter question, the test is now how the group in question will be classified by I have a hard time saying the word, ethnologists. if I'm saying it wrong, forgive me, who have made a study of a racial origin, but rather what group of people then living in 1790 with the characteristics then existing which were intended by Congress to be classified as white persons. Applying this principle, the court finds that petitioner is an Arab and that the Arabs are not white persons within the meaning of this act. Okay, we must understand. All right, the Arab were not citizens, nor are the Chinese citizens under the Naturalization Act of 1790. They only became citizens by way of Immigration Act. Okay, because the 14th Amendment was exclusively for what? The enslaved children of slaves. All right? Children of slaves. Let's move forward. Now, very important to understand that why I'm here to return your estate by way, if you understand why this estate should be turned to you, you must understand how the estate was taken from you, and that's based upon the definition of recorder of deeds. Okay, let's define that, because Frederick Douglass was the recorder of deeds. Okay, Frederick Douglass, an Anglo-Saxon Negroid. Okay, which means he must have been Spanish because he was concerned about the American-Mexican War. Okay, he was truly involved in what we call the American-Mexican War. Okay, very important that we understand that, and we're going to understand it because we're going to talk about it today. Okay, so recorder of deeds or deed registry is a government office tasked with maintaining public records and documents, especially records relating to real estate ownership that provides persons other than the owner of property with the real rights over that property. So it means that the deeds are not actual instruments of proof of ownership. It's just the instrument that convey property from one person to another. So that means that they are color and void at law. Okay, very important. Now, why I bring this up, because we need to understand that Frederick Douglass knew more than he was telling them, and he knew more, and we lack the understanding that he knew at the time when our ancestors were enslaved. Okay, he knew a lot more than he was saying. All right, we know that based upon what we're about to read about now. Okay, because we're going back in time of the ancient black people identified by the word Negro, which origin of the word Negro comes from Spain, from the territory known as Castile, which had a vast kingdom, had a vast empire of kings, okay, on the island of Iberia, all right, which was the home of the Sephardic Jews going all the way back to King Solomon, okay, going back to King Solomon, because the word Sephardic means Iberia, okay. The word Sephardic means Iberia. So keep up. Let's see. All right. Let's go into the words of the Anglo-Saxon Berber market, Frederick Douglass. Let's see. Right. From here, we go into the Mexican War. Okay. We know that on the west side of the Mississippi River, okay, we had the territories composed by the New Spain and New France. Okay. On the east side of the Mississippi, going back to 1491, okay, you had the Native American tribes, known as the five civilized tribes, which received the culture of the Anglo-Saxon, which civilized them, okay? But that's in 1491 under Spanish Roman Catholic. And we know that when you deal with the Roman Catholics, you have to go back into Roman Catholic and the territory called Spain to see how those Roman Catholics took that Catholicism and brought it over here to what we now call North America. All right? So please pay very, very close attention, because the Spanish conquest or the Spanish colonization didn't take place on what? The eastern side of North America. It took place on the western side of North America, i.e. west of the Mississippi. Okay? Very, very, very important clues. Because of the discrepancy between the facts of the English history and the American exceptionalism upon which Anglo-Saxon was purportedly built, Douglass has difficulty parceling his sense of America's temporality and his own personal timeline from the Anglo-Saxonism that drove the war. In this case, we talk about the Mexican War, okay? Because he was a Negro. The word Negro is a Spanish word that comes from Castile, okay, which was ruled by the Spanish Empire, and the Spanish Empire ruled New Spain over here. And we know that Mexico got their independence from Spain from the Treaty of Cordoba, okay, and they now formed themselves what they call the Mexican Empire, okay. They formed themselves the Mexican Empire as a result of the Treaty of Cordoba, and that started the first Spanish monarchy over here in what we call now North America. You don't believe me? Let's check it out. All right. So it says that he wrote the in expectoration published in the Northern Star on the 22nd of December 1848 that the haughty Normans once looked down upon the degraded and subjected Anglo-Saxon as an inferior species of a race of men. The Americans now look down upon the Mexicans as an inferior species of a race of men. And so we suppose it will ever be with successful tyrants. Douglas manipulated conventions and asked his readers to reconsider what Anglo-Saxon history really taught America about assumptions of racial superiority. His level of remove his level of remove from the Americas mentioned here makes it seem as though Douglas understood himself as an observer and not a participant in the nation's propagandistic manipulation of history. Now that's very important because we just went through the five civilized tribes, okay? And we said that they adopted the culture of the Anglo-Saxon Berbers. Okay, all right, the Anglo-Saxon Berbers. They never called themselves Anglo-White American. Okay, they just call themselves White Americans. Okay, very important. So we have to understand and look at the term Anglo-American versus America Anglo. Okay, so just look at that before we go on with this article. Anglo-American. Okay, Anglo-American. Let's look at that term. Anglo-American. Anglo-American are a demographic group of an Anglo-America. It typically refers to the predominantly European descent nations, an ethnic group. You hear that? Ethnic group. All right, not a color of skin, but ethnic group in the Americas that speak English as a native language, making up the majority of people in the world who speak English as a first language. Okay, not just because you speak the language, but you got a different color of skin, but the language that you speak belongs to you because it's the language of your forefathers or ancestors. Usage. The term is ambiguous and used in several different ways, while it is primarily used to refer to people of English ancestry. Of English ancestry. So if that's the case, then let's take a look at the Anglosphere. Anglosphere. We're going back in history, brothers and sisters. Anglosphere. The Anglosphere, also known as the Anglo-American world, Anglo-America, is the Anglo-American sphere of influence with a core group of nations that today maintain close political, diplomatic, and military operations. While the nations included in different sources vary, the Anglosphere is usually not considered to include all countries where English is an official language. So it is not synonymous with the sphere of what they call the Anglophones. Though commonly included nations are those that were formerly part of the British Empire and retained the English language and the English common law. Okay, very, very, very important that when you're talking about Anglo America, you're talking about the Anglosphere. And we're talking about the Anglosphere, you're talking about the ethnicity of those who are English and not somebody who speaks English but got a different color of skin or have a different nationality. Okay, we must comprehend that to make the connection of where I'm going with it. Okay, all right. So we know the five, civil, five civilized tribes adopted the culture of the Anglo. We're civilized. We know that the white Americans here in America adopted the culture of the Anglo-Saxon that civilized them, okay, here in America. And we know that the Anglo and the Spanish were family here in North America by virtue of the fact that they were unified by way of what we call marriage, which we're going to go into now, okay? Let's get it, brothers and sisters. Let's go back to uh, 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 Frederick Douglass. Don't y'all fall asleep on me now. If you want to find out if you're the true Jew, don't fall asleep on me. All right, let's see. Right here. We're starting from right here. The haughty Normans once looked down upon the degraded and subject to Anglo-Saxon as an inferior species of race of men. The Americans now look down on the Mexicans as an inferior species of race of men. And so we suppose there will ever be successful tyrants. Douglas manipulated conventions and asked his readers to reconsider what Anglo-Saxon history really taught America about assumptions of racial superiority. His level of remove from the Americas mentioning here makes it seem as though Douglas understood himself as an observer and not participant in the nation's propagandistic manipulation of history. Okay, let's move a little further. And yet Douglas understood himself as a participant in their future as the war ended. Douglas wrote an editorial for the North Star that began with distinguishing his paper from the other celebrating peace. He wrote in peace, peace, peace. We are such an exception to that great mass of our fellow countrymen that we find it difficult to unite with them at this time and in their general exhortation. The pronoun here is clear. We are an exception apart from the great mass. And yet, by the end of his statement, Douglas put himself back in the company of the war perpetrators by entreating his readers to crave pardon for our crimes at the hand of God, whose mercies endures forever. Douglas, 1848b. The war, a part of the beginning of the pieces, become part of the nation's, become part of the nationals, ours. Let me read that again. That we are part at the beginning of the peace becomes part of the national, ours by the end of it. Douglas was consistent in expressing that his destiny was contingent on American Anglo-Saxonism, even while he refused to participate in the ideology manipulations of history, as he wrote in The Destiny of Colored Americans, an article published in the North Star the 16th of November, 1849. We deem it settled we deem it set a point that the destiny of the colored man is bound up with that of the white people in this country by the destiny of the latter, what it may be. Okay, the destiny of the latter is what it may be. That's the white people. Okay, but our destiny is assured. Douglas capitalized on the Anglo-Saxonism to show that the true heirs to the Saxon legacy as a conquered people were not only the Mexicans, as in the examples above, but also black. In Douglas' view, black had even more of a claim on Anglo-Saxon culture and heritage than the Mexicans did. Very, very, very important because it's going to take us to the Mexican War, the Mexican-American War. We're going back in time from slaves, from slaves of the Americans. All right, going back into a time era where our ancestors were free. Okay, were free. All right, and this is before they were influenced by America through what we call the American-Mexican War, because Mexican was an empire when it got its independence from what we call Spanish Empire. We know the Spanish Empire in 1491. All right, we know that they colonized what we call the west side of what we call North America. Okay, in 1492. All right, and with Christopher Columbus, and this is where that Indian stuff started coming from. Okay, he swore he was in India, but he was not in India. He was in the land of the Berbers. He was in the land of the niggers. All right, very important. He was in the land of the Negro, which are Spanish heirs and descendants, not just over here, but as well as on the Iberian Peninsula. Okay, because that was the home of the Sephardic Jew. Let's get it. It says here. So it says Douglas views black has even more of a claim on Anglo-Saxon culture and heritage than Mexicans did, given their common enslavement. For Douglas, black Americans could understand Anglo-Saxon England as a point of origin. Did y'all hear that? He said we should understand Anglo-Saxon England as a point of origin by invoking medieval English history and challenging white members of his audience to think of themselves as oppressive Normans rather than Anglo-Saxons. Douglas participated in vaunting historical Saxons while he called for an end to the Anglo-Saxon sense of a racial superiority. In this model, the Anglo-Saxon legacy of freedom could be more widely acceptable. Did you hear that? It can be more widely acceptable. Why is this the case? Let's go to another article with Frederick Douglass to qualify it. This article is Frederick Douglass, my bondage, my Frederick Douglass, bondage is my freedom. Bondage is my freedom. Check it out. This is from Frederick Douglass, his own words. He was a Negro. All right. If he was a Negroid, then that means he was of Spanish descent because the word Negro comes from Spain and the territorial origin where the word Negro comes from is Castile. Okay. And Castile was part of the Spanish Empire before Mexico got their independence by the Treaty of Cordoba. Okay. This is why America started the American Mexican War. Okay. This is why Frederick Douglass had so much to say that we have more in line with Mexico, all right? We have more in line with the Anglo-Saxon, even more than the Mexicans, because the Mexicans were a corruption of the original Spaniards. We know that under Spanish conquest in 1491, they conquered the Aztecs, the Incas, and the Mayans, but they never conquered the Olmecs. They were the original inhabitants of that territory. Okay, they were there before the Aztecs, Mayans, and the Incas, but somehow the Spanish, okay, who had a territory over here in Spain, okay, in Spain that stretched from Spain all the way to what we call the Iberian Peninsula. All right. And apparently, if the word Negro comes from that, then that means that they were all Negro. Okay. They were all Negro, what you call black. Let's get it. The style of Mr. Douglass in writing is to me as an intellectual puzzle. The strengths, influence, and richness may easily be accounted for because the style of a man is the man. But how are we to account for this rare polish in his style of writing? Which most critically examined seems the result of a careful early culture among the best classics of our language. It equals, if it does not surpass, the style of Hugh Miller, which was the wonder of the British literary public, until he unraveled the mystery and the most interest of autobiography. But Frederick Douglass was still caulking the seam of Baltimore Clippers and had only written a past at the age when Miller's style was already formed. I asked William Whipper of Pennsylvania, the gentleman alluded to above, whether he thought Mr. Douglass' power inherited from Negro, or what, or was it, or was, or from what is called Caucasian side of his makeup. After some reflection, he frankly answered, "I must admit, although sorry to do so, that the Caucasian predominates at that time. I almost agree with him, but facts narrated in the first part of this work, though a different light in this interesting question. We are left in the dark as to who was the paternal ancestor of our author, a fact which generally holds goods of the Romans and Romanists who are the inaugurates of the new birth of our republic. In the absence of testimony from the Caucasian side, we must see what evidence is given on other sides of the house." You hear that? Okay, so let's see what other results are on the other side of the house. Let's go back to 753 BC. Okay, 753 BC, when we are already well into the what was it, what was it, the 32nd, 33rd dynasty? Let's see. Okay, let's go back to 753. Since they're going back to Roman and Aurelius, let's go back to the time of Romanus and Aurelius. Because we know the word, the new calendar, AD, means Annus Dominios, which means in the year of our Lord. The word BC calendar either means before Christ or Berber calendar. Okay, one of the two. So 753 BC. Okay, that is the time of Romulus and Remus, legendary founders of the city of Rome. Okay, and 753 BC. But if we look on the calendar here, we're well into the 23rd dynasty of the Berbers. You hear that? The 23rd dynasty was an ancient Egyptian dynasty of the ancient Libyan origin, where they're usually classified as the third dynasty of the ancient Egyptian third intermediate period. They were Mesh-West kings, okay? Mesh-West kings. So at the time of Romulus and Remus, we were in the 23rd dynasty, which are actually called Anglo-Saxon Berbers, okay? Because if you go to 1911 Encyclopedia Britannica, they clearly show you that the government of the Anglo-Saxon called Wittenma was the government of the Berbers. I ain't got time to go back there and show you. We showed you so many times, but please pay very close attention. So at the time of Romulus and Remus, we was already on the planet, okay, doing our thing well into the 23rd dynasty. All right, let's go back to Frederick Douglass. We're going back in time. Right here. Okay. So we got some makeup to do, brothers and sisters. It said we are left in the dark as to who was the paternal ancestors of our author. A fact which generally holds good of the Romulus and Remus who are to inaugurate the new birth of our republic. In the absence of a testimony from the Caucasian side, we must see what evidence is given on the other side of the house. My grandmother, though advanced in years, was yet a woman of power and spirit. She was marvelously straight in figure and elastic and muscular. After describing her skills in constructing nets, her perversiveness, her parts of her perseverance in using them, and her widespread fame in the agricultural way he adds, it happened to her as it would happen to any careful and thrifty person residing in a ignorant and improvident in an improvident neighborhood to enjoy the reputation of being born to good luck. And his grandmother was a black woman. Okay, his grandmother was a black woman. Let's see. All right. So key point is that he said he tend to where is that at? Where is that at? Did I miss it? 1 second. All right. Here we go. All right, so let's look at the word. So he said was he Negro or Caucasian? Well, we already know he was a Negro because he was considered a black person, whether he was African or African American. He was identified a black person, and black is another word for the word Negro or nigger or Negra, etc., whatever you want to say. And the origin of the word Negro originated in what we call Spain, and territory in Spain where it originated was called Castile. Let's go there before we go to the American-Mexican War, because he was most concerned about what was going on in Mexico. All right, then with the American-Mexican War, because we know prior to that that American-Mexican War, Mexico was an empire. Okay, it was an empire, and it didn't become an empire to the Treaty of Cordoba when it separated from the Spanish Empire. Okay, from the Spanish Empire. So let's see why Frederick Douglass had so much to say about what was going on during the Mexican-American War. Okay, let's go there now, because we're going back in time, brothers and sisters. Back in time. Let's see. Mexican-American War. I'll be jumping and skipping. The Mexican-American War, also known in the United States as the Mexican War, in Mexico as the United States intervention in Mexico, was an invasion of Mexico by the United States Army from 1846 to 1848. Did y'all hear that? From 1846 to 1848. That is all irrelevant right now. Why? Because let's go to the history of the Mexican-American War, and we'll find out where we need to go. Let me just read this part right here. No, I'm not going to read that. We already know it has something to do with slavery. because Frederick Douglass had something to say about it. Let's go to background. Okay. Background. Small snippet. That's it. That's all we need is a small snippet. Mexico after independence. Okay. Mexico after independence. Mexico after independence. Mexico obtained independence from the Spanish Empire with the Treaty of Cordoba in 1821 after a decade of conflict between royal armies and insurgents for independence with no foreign intervention. Okay? The conflict ruined the silver mining district of, if I pronounce it wrong, please forgive me, Zacatecas and Guanajuato. Mexico began as a sovereign nation with its future financial stability from from its main exports destroyed. Mexico briefly experimented with a monarchy but became a republic in 1824. This is all important history because now we understand that Spanish Empire gave Mexico its independence. This is when Mexico became a empire. It's called the Mexican Empire. We know prior to it was called Mexico, it was part of the Spanish Empire. Okay? And Nobody's Rally spoke fervent about what was going on in Mexico because he understood that we had some connection to that territory now called Mexico because it originally was a part of what we call the Spanish Empire. And we know the Spanish Empire was ruled by the kings of Spain. And the kings of Spain ruled on the Iberian Peninsula, which is a name for the Sephardic Jews. Okay? The Sephardic Jews. I'm going to get into that in a minute, brothers and sisters. Just hold on. Okay? Just hold on. Y'all gonna love it when I get there too. All right. Let's see. Spanish Empire. Let's look at it. Now we already know, right? We already know that the five civilized tribes adopted the Anglo culture, okay, and which civilized them, just like the white Americans adopted the Anglo culture, which civilized them. That's why they adopted the English common law. Well, we're going back to the time of what we call the Spanish Empire before Mexico even got their independence through the Treaty of Cordoba and became an empire, which caused conflict with America as a result of what was ceded to them by way of the Treaty of Paris of 1763. Okay? So they from that they took advantage of it and made their push to what we resulted in what we call the American Mexican War or the Mexican American War. Okay, however you want to say it, it makes no difference to me. Okay, so we're dealing with the uh, Spanish Empire. Very, 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 very important, brothers and sisters, because at this time of the empire, the territory west of the Mississippi was influenced by Roman Catholics. Okay? Roman Catholic. If it's affected us over here, it damn sure affects us over there on the Iberian Peninsula. That means you have to understand Roman Catholicism in Spain, which we're going to go to now in a second. Okay? We're going to go to now in a second. It says Catholic monarchs and origins of the empire. With the marriage of the heirs and parent to their respective thrones, Ferdinand of Aragon and Isabella of Castile created a personal union that most scholars view as the foundation of the Spanish monarchy. That is a lie, okay? That is a straight lie. Okay, it's not the foundation of the Spanish monarchy. It's foundation of the Roman Catholic Spanish monarchy. The union of the crowns of Castile and Aragon joined the economic and military power of the Iberia under one dynasty known as the House of Trastamara. Once again, known as the House of Trastamara. If you look at the history in the box, you clearly see that Christopher Columbus was the age of discovery when they discovered the Americas, the Spanish colonization of America in 1493, okay, associated with Christopher Columbus. That resulted in the conquest of Norway, the conquest of the Aztec Empire, the Magellan circumnavigation, the conquest of the Mayans, the conquest of the Inca Empire, and the conquest of the Muisca. But what happened, or where is there a conquering of the Olmec Empire? Where? You do not see it, brothers and sisters. Why don't you see it? Because they were actually Spanish, okay? They were Spanish Berbers, okay? Spanish Negro Berbers or Spanish Negro Black Berbers, Negro, whatever you want to call it, they were Spanish Berbers. How are we going to prove it? Because they are descendants of the Spanish, okay? And we know Negro is the name that comes from Spain and the origin of Castile. And we're talking about Spanish kings from the kingdom of Castile on the Iberian Peninsula. We're going back in time, brothers and sisters. Let's get it. Let's see. All right. So the Spanish Empire was in 1492. Okay. We also know that the five civilized tribes adopted the Anglo culture. Okay, which made them civilized, as well as the white American became civilized because they had nothing to do with the ethnicity of the Anglo-Saxon, which according to Imre Hassan clearly says that they were dark-skinned Anglo-Saxons. Okay. All right. The same complexion as Frederick Douglass. Okay. The same complexion. We must understand that. Okay. So if you trace the Spanish Empire all the way back, okay, let's see here. Membership. This Roman Catholic Spanish monarchs under Isabella of Castile and Ferdinand, all right, is Trastamara. They descended down from the Habsburgs, Capitan, Bourbons, House of Valios, Burgundy, House of Capet, House of Bonaparte, House of Savoy. These houses right here between the House of Capet and the House of Capitan all had conflicts with who? The Plantagenet crown. Okay? The Plantagenet crown. Very, 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 very important. And we're talking about the Spanish Empire, right? And it says in 1700, Philip V became king of Spain after the death of Charles II of the last Habsburg monarch of Spain, who died without an heir. His ascension triggered the War of the Spanish Succession as various European powers contested his claim to the throne. The conflict concluded with the Treaty of Utrecht in 1713, allowing Philip I, Bourbon king of Spain, to retain the throne, but resulted in territorial losses for Spain, i.e. the Gibraltar. You hear that? The Gibraltar. The Gibraltar is on the Strait of Gibraltar, on the coast of the Iberian Peninsula. We talked about yesterday earlier in my lesson I did earlier today. Okay, ain't got time to go through it right now, so I got to continue to go on. Okay, so we're talking about the Spanish Empire, okay, at the time of the Spanish conquest of North America under Isabella of Castile and King Ferdinand. And they were all Roman Catholics, okay? They were all Roman Catholics. We must understand that, all right? Now let's go back to the Spanish. First of all, let's look at the word Negro. Look at the word Negro. Let's go there. Okay? It's found in two places, either Italy or Spain. We know if we go to Italy, that would be associated with Rome, okay? Which would be a reason for the Roman Catholic influence on the Spanish kings and queens and heirs and descendants versus the origin of the name Negro being in Spain, okay? So I'm not going to go to Italy. We're going to go to Spain. In Spain, the surname Negro was first found, and everyone said, in Castile, in northern central Spain, okay? The word Negro, that means all you Negroes out there, okay? You just don't have a connection to the west side of the what we call the Mississippi River. All right, that was under the control of the French and Spanish Berbers. Okay, who originated on the Iberian Peninsula. Okay, you also got the connection here because they had overseas possession here in what they call New Spain and New France. Okay, before the influence of the Roman Catholics on that was influenced over here, which was started from the influence over on the Iberian Peninsula when we go back and study the history of the Roman Catholic influence in Spain. Okay, so please keep up. The word Negro, history, family, question, coat of arms, originated in Castile. Okay, so let's go to the kingdom of Castile. All right, the kingdom of Castile. Is everybody keeping up? If you're keeping up, please give me a thumbs up in the chat line. Please give me a thumbs up in the chat line if you're keeping up with me. All right. So we went from we went from the American-Mexican War, okay, back to the Mexican Empire, back to the Spanish Empire here in what we call North America, okay, all right, and we excluding all those people color whose color skin is of a lighter hue, okay, because we know the word Negro means black, dark skinned, okay, all right, and Negro is Spanish, and we know that when the Spanish conquest came in 1492, okay, when it came in 1492, there were Roman Catholics who had all those natives over here in what we call west of the Mississippi change their culture and custom as a result of Roman Catholicism. Very, very, very important. So that means we have to go back in time dealing with the Spanish kings back to what we call the Kingdom of Castile before it was influenced by Roman Catholics. Okay, let's get there. The Kingdom of Castile was a polity in the Iberian Peninsula during the Middle Ages. It traces its origin to the 9th century in the county of Castile. So this is before Isabella of Castile and King Ferdinand. This is before the Roman Catholics invade what we call North America, not in what we call New Spain and New France, but they actually over here in the east side of what we call the Mississippi River on the Atlantic coast, okay? On the Atlantic coast, and Atlantic coast, Iberian Peninsula is right across the water, okay? Right across the water. So I got a problem with that. How could, I'm gonna paint the picture. How can Frederick Douglass be concerned with the American-Mexican War? And the American-Mexican War was a war that took place with the Americans, all right? And prior to Americans starting the war, the territory was controlled by what we call Anglo-Saxons. How do we know that? Because the Anglo-Saxons were unified with what we call the Spanish crown. They were unified with the Spanish crown. If you go back into, as I said, the Spanish conquest in 1491, and we deal with the history dealing with the 5 civilized tribes who adopted the Anglo culture, which civilized them. That means that they were not actually Anglo-Saxon. They were a product of the American colonies. Okay, they were a product of the American colonies. You must understand that. Let's see how. Distribution, right, of the barbarous tribes. Distributions of the barbarous tribes. 1491. On the east side of the Mississippi, not the west side of the Mississippi. On the west side of the Mississippi, the Spanish conquest or the Spanish colonization of North America was supposed to have been a result of them conquering the Aztecs, the Mayans, the Incas, etc. But they never conquered the Olmecs. Okay, we've seen that under the Spanish conquest, but now they asked it over here on the East Coast in 1491 when they're dealing with what they call the barbarous tribes. Okay, we know the Native Americans are not the barbarous tribes because the barbarous tribes are the Berber tribes, okay, that were distributed. Distribute means to distribute, to move, to put somewhere, okay? That's what the word distribute means, to put somewhere. And we see the Choctaw, we see the Seminole, we see the Creek, we see the Yamasee, we see the Chickasaw, we see all these Native American tribes when we just read that they all adopted the culture of the Anglo, not the Anglo-American, because America was not here until the white people got here. Okay, and they did not adopt the Anglo-Saxon culture. Why? Because they had nothing to do with no ethnicity or genealogy. They only had to do with a color of skin. A color of skin. I'm getting hot, y'all. I'm getting hot. So that means that all these tribes on the east side of what we call the Mississippi River are not Native American Indians, and they are not Native American. They are Negro, Spanish, Berbers. Why? Because we control the whole darn landmass. Okay, the unification concentration of our ancestors was in the middle of the country along the Mississippi River. Okay, but we also had existence on the outskirts. Okay, how I know that? Let's check it out. Before we had even contact with the British Empire. Okay, let's check it out. Look at this map. Look at this map. Spain possession, Portugal possession. Okay? Greetings, Brother McGowan from House McGowan. Spain and Portugal's possession. Okay? Look at it. We ain't even talking about France. Okay? We're talking about Spain and Portugal. Okay? Look at the trade routes. Look at the trade routes. They over there in Great Britain. You see that? They over here in Great Britain. So we were coming back and forth already before the Spanish colonization. This says in 1492, 1493, 1504, and 1502. Okay? But we were already here before those Spanish who were influenced by what we call the Roman Catholicism. Okay? We know that Roman Catholics start with Rome, and Rome started with Romans and Remus, and the Roman and Remus goes back to 753 BC. And 753 BC, we were already well into the what was it, the 23rd dynasty of our ancestors who were Metz West Libyan Berbers. Okay, we must comprehend what is going on, because if you don't, you'll be forever lost. Okay, so the distribution of the barbarian tribes or the barbarous tribes were not Native American Indians, because we know the Native American Indians or Native Americans or just Americans adopted the Anglo-Saxon culture here in the Anglosphere, okay, and the Anglophone because they speak the language of the English in what we call the Anglosphere, okay. Very, very important that you comprehend that, okay. Let's see. And we know that now they ain't Native American Indians because they adopted our culture, the culture of the Anglo-Saxon Berbers, who were the barbarous tribe. And we don't want to barbarous tribe because they constantly defending the land. Okay? Of course you're gonna call me barbarians if I'm acting or fighting like I ain't got no sense to make sure you don't take what I got. Come on, please stop playing with us. All right, so let's see it. So the barbarous tribes were not Native American Indians as they say. They were actually Berbers, because we know when we deal with the barbarous tribes and we connect the barbarous tribes who were Berbers with the Spanish and French ancestors who were also Berbers, that would take us back to what we call Alfred the Great. Okay, Alfred the Great. He united the barbarian kingdoms. Okay, he united the barbarian kingdom. We already talked about this. Ain't got time to read it all, but I'm going to read it in the narrative. The barbarian kingdoms were states founded by barbarous non-Roman, primarily Germanic people in Western Europe and North Africa followed the collapse of the Western Roman Empire in the 5th century. The barbarian kingdoms were the principal government in the Western Europe in the early Middle Ages. The time of the barbarian kingdom is considered to have come to an end with Charlemagne's coronation as an emperor in 800, though a handful of small Anglo-Saxon kingdoms persisted until being unified by Alfred the Great. Everybody hold that thought for a minute. Hey, sorry about that, brothers and sisters. I'm back. So let me get him. Okay. So the barbarian kingdoms were united by Alfred the Great, okay? King of the Anglo-Saxons, okay? King of the Anglo-Saxons, and he unified something that was a part of what we call a cosmopolitan movement, okay? A cosmopolitan movement. We must understand this, all right? We must understand this. Okay, so we understand that the barbarian kingdoms, all right, were the barbarian tribes who were unified by Alfred the Great, the king of the Anglo-Saxon, who controlled the Anglosphere, okay? And the Anglosphere was worldwide. The Anglosphere was worldwide. Let's see. Let's move forward. All right. So the Spanish Empire. The Spanish Empire is very important for us to understand. Why? Because it tells a whole story about who our ancestors were. Okay? It tells a whole story about who our ancestors were. So let's really see, because we are the true Jews. Okay? We are the true Jews. I keep saying that word wrong. Jews, the true Jews. All right. The true Jews are the Negroes, and the Negroes are the Spaniards, and the Spaniards are those who were originated on the what we call the Iberian Peninsula. Okay, the Iberian Peninsula, and we know that that was called by many names in time when it was controlled by Rome. It was called Hispania. Okay, when it was controlled by the Jews, it was under the it's called Sephardi, Sephardi, which was the name for the Sephardic Jews. Okay, and then when it was called by inhabited by what we call the Arabs, it was called Al Andalus. Okay, it was called Al Andalus. Now we see the connection of the Spaniards. We see the connection that the word Negro has to the Spaniards. We see that the connection that the word um, uh, um, what we call uh, Negro has to what we call Spain. Okay, now let's look at the word Jew. Let's look at the word Jew and the origin of the word Jew, because it's going to take us right back to Spain. Okay, it's going to take us right back to Spain. Let's see. Here we go. Jew. Who are the true Jews? Jew, history, family crest, and coat of arms. Okay. Etymology of the word Jew. The name Jew came to England with the ancestors of Jews family in Norman conquest in 1066. The Jew family lived in Somerset, where my great 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 grandmother name came from. Somerset. Okay. The family was originally from the area of Troux near Carnay, Normandy. Alternatively, the name could have been from you in Normandy, commonly called La Belle de You. Okay, La Belle de Vous, however you pronounce that. Okay, so it just said the name Jew came to England with the ancestors of the Jew family and the Norman conquest in 1066. Okay, that's when they were expelled in 1290 by Edward the First. Y'all better listen to me, brothers and sisters. They were expelled from England. They were expelled from Spain, and they were expelled at the time of what we call the Exodus. Okay, the Jews were expelled at the time of the Exodus. They were expelled in what they call Spain, and they were expelled in England. So we need to understand what type of Jew are they talking about that was expelled? Because the word Jew comes from England. Okay? It comes from England. Okay? But we're going to find it over in what we call Troops or Carne Normandy. Okay? Which is on the Iberian Peninsula. That means that the English and the Spanish people were one. Okay? You don't believe me? Let's check it out. Troops and Carne is actually called Cain. All right? Cain. Let's look at it. Where the name Jew come from. Cain is known for its historical buildings built during the reign of William the Conqueror, who was buried there, and for the Battle of Cain, heavy fighting that took place in and around Cain during the Battle of Normandy in 1944. Destroying much of the city has now preserved the memory and erected memorials and a museum dedicated to peace, the Memorial of Cain. Okay? It was also called Charnay. Chooks, Chooks. Let's look at that real quick. Chooks, where the word Jew comes from. The English word, okay? Not Jewish, not Hebrew, okay? But the English word. Chooks is a former commune in Calvados department in Normandy region in the northwestern France. You hear that? Northwestern France. You hear that? So the word Jew originated in France on the Iberian Peninsula, the home of the Sephardic Jew. Okay? The home of the Sephardic Jew. We must understand. If you don't understand, let's go deeper. Let's look at the word Jews to show the difference of what Jews and who the Jews are. Because got everybody walking around talking about they Jews. Okay? Everybody want to say they Jews. But can you prove that you are, in fact, a Jew? Biblically, historically, and lawfully, can you prove that you are, in fact, a Jew? Because we know we are, because Alfred the Great created the law. It was called the Dooms Book, okay? The Dooms Book. He incorporated the Mosaic Code, the Ten Commandments, okay? We must understand that. You don't believe me? Let me show you. Jew or the Jewish people are the ethno-religious group and nation. So we're talking about the ethnicity or the genealogy of the Jewish people and not some practice or belief or faith that's being practiced, okay? So the Jewish people are an ethno-religious group and nation originating from the Israelites of ancient Israel and Judah and traditionally adhering to Judaism. You hear that? Jewish ethnicity, religion, and community are highly interrelated, as Judaism is their ethnic religion, though it is not practiced by all ethnic Jews, despite their religious Jews. Despite this, religious Jews regard converts to Judaism as members of the Jewish nation pursuant to a long-standing conversion process. Okay, so let's make the distinction of what Jews are they talking about. Okay, let's make a distinction. We have to. All right. In the following millennia, Jewish diaspora communities coalesced into three major ethnic subdivisions according to where their ancestors settled. The Ashkenazim Central and Eastern Europe, the Sephardim, the Iberian Peninsula, and the Mizraim, the Middle East or North Africa. You hear that? Three groups of Jews. The Ashkenazi, the Sephardim, and the Mizraim. Okay? The Ashkenazis, the Sephardim, and the Mizraim. Okay, so let's first look at what we call the Ashkenazims. Okay, Counter search, I didn't get your remark. Not a long-standing conversion process? What do you mean by that? Ashkenazi Jews constitute a Jewish diaspora population that emerged in the Holy Roman Empire around the end of the first millennium. They traditionally speak Yiddish, a language that originated in the 9th century and largely migrated towards North and Eastern Europe during the late Middle Ages due to the persecution. This is why we rely upon the 1911 Encyclopedia Britannica, all right? Because we understand the 1911 Encyclopedia Britannica clearly shows you that uh, uh, the true Jews were the Berbers, okay? Because the 1911 Encyclopedia Britannica was written in Edinburgh, Scotland, during the Jewish Enlightenment. Yes, yes, well said, well said. So we understand that when you're dealing with the exodus of the Jews, that was due to Jewish diaspora. Okay, I'm parts of when we're dealing with the 1911 Encyclopedia Britannica, and which defines the 1911 defines Berber as the Anglo-Saxon Berbers. They define the Anglo-Saxon as Berbers. We'll see that that was created in Edinburgh, Scotland, through the Jewish Enlightenment, through the Scottish Enlightenment. Okay, through the Scottish Enlightenment, and the Scottish Enlightenment are the Jews or the British who call themselves Jews. They're called British Israelites, okay, which are the Ashkenazi Jews. So they're claiming to be the children of God as well. Okay, matter of fact, let me pull that up as well. Archbishop told me to do that, so I'm gonna do it now. British Israelism. And don't forget where the word Jew originated in France, Normandy, okay, on the Iberian Peninsula. Just like the word Negro, over on the Iberian Peninsula. Bear with me, it's loading. Come on. Okay, here we go. Here we go. So we talk about the three types of Jews: the Ashkenazi, the Sephardim, and the what was the other one? Uh, the Mizraim Jew. Okay, we're gonna get to that one in a second. All right. So we just did the Ashkenazi Jews. We're going to do the Mizraim as well as the Sephardim, but before that, we're going to do with the British Jew because they claim to be Jews as well. All right. British Israelism. I know that they're on the same continent, I should say. All right, they're on the same continent. I didn't mean France was France isn't. What you mean France is not on the Iberian Peninsula? It's on the same landmass. That's what I meant. Okay. All right. Let's see. British Israelism, also called Anglo-Israelism, is a pseudo-historical belief that the people of Great Britain are genetically, racially, and linguistically the direct descendants of the 10 lost tribes of the ancient Israelites, with roots in the 16th century. British Israelism was inspired by several 19th century English writers such as John Wilson. From 1870 onward, numerous independent British Israelite organizations were set up throughout the British Empire as well as the United States. As early as the 21st century, a number of these organizations are still alive in the United States, and the idea gave rise to Christian identity and movement. Let's see. All right, let's move from there. Let's go back to Jew. Ashkenazi Jew. So we got the Ashkenazi Jews, all right, constitute a Jewish diaspora population that emerged in the Holy Roman Empire around the end of the first millennium. They traditionally speak Yiddish, a language that originated in the 9th century and largely migrated towards the North and Eastern Europe during the Middle Ages due to persecution. Okay, that's one group. Let's see the next group. Mizraim, which is from the Middle East and North Africa. Okay. Mizrah Jews, also known as Mizrahim Jews, is plural for Mizrahi, and singular is alternately referred to as the Oriental Jews. All right, communities of the East are terms used in Israel discourse to refer to a group of Jewish communities that live in the Muslim world. Mizrahi is a political sociological term that was coined with the creation of the state of Israel and is translated as Easterner in Hebrew. Okay, Easterner in Hebrew. Indian Jews are sometimes labeled as Mizrahi, though members of the community have identified themselves as a separate category in Southern Asia. So you got the Mizrahi Jew, you got the Ashkenazi Jew, now you got the Sephardic Jew. So let's take a look at the Sephardic Jew, being that there's three people or three groups classifying themselves as Jews, along with the British Jews. Okay, and the British claimed that they were descendants of the ancient Israelites. So everyone claimed to be the children of Israel. Okay, everyone's claimed to be the children of Israel, but no proof to validate it. Okay, no proof to validate it. I'm saying that the ancient Israelites or the ancient Jews from the tribe of Judah are the ancient Spanish people on the in the territory known as the Iberian Peninsula. Okay, that was inhabited by Spain, whether you want to call it Spain, whether you want to call it Al Andalus, whether you want to call it Hispania. I mean, it got many names of it, but we're going back to the time when it was occupied by Sephardic Jews, okay? Because that is what we're defining now. We already did the Ashkenazi Jews. We already did the Mizraim Jews. Now we're going to do the Sephardic Jews. So let's do that. Sephardim, and they were originated on the Iberian Peninsula. You're absolutely right. Let's see. The Sephardic Jew. Okay, very, very, very important. Because we're associating the Negro, i.e., the black man. Okay. All right, we're associating them with the Negro, and we know the word Negro originated in Spain, all right, in a territory called Castile. And they were associated with the kings of Castile, which we can clearly identify as being Negro, okay? As being Negro. And we know that they had overseas possessions, not just here in what we call North America, but as well as on the Iberian Peninsula, okay? The Iberian Peninsula. But the topic is Jew, and they said the Sephardic Jew, also known as the Sephardi Jew or Sephardim, is rarely as the Iberian Peninsula Jews. Okay. All right, rarely as the Iberian Peninsula Jews. So that means that the Iberian Peninsula was the island peninsula of the Jews, okay, or the island of the Jews, okay, and are a Jewish diaspora population associated with the Iberian Peninsula of Spain and Portugal. Not the Ashkenazi, not the Mizraim, but the Sephardic Jew, or the Iberian Jew, or the Spanish Jew, or the Negro Jew, or the Black Jew. Am I making sense to y'all? If everybody understand that, please give me a thumbs up in the chat line before I go on. Please give me a thumbs up in the chat line, okay? Before I go on and let you know that the Negro, the Spanish, the Anglo-Saxon, all right, all these Jews that descended from Adam and Eve, okay? Adam and Eve. The Sephardic Jews, rarely as Iberian Peninsula Jews, are, are a Jewish diaspora population associated with the Iberian Peninsula and Spain and Portugal. The term, which is derived from the Hebrew Sepharad, Iberia, can also refer to the Jews of the Middle East and North Africa. Okay, of North Africa, not the one in this picture. Okay, not the one in this picture. They are what they call Mizraim Jews, not the Ashkenazi, not the Sephardi, but the Mizraim Jew, because they look like more Indian. Okay, very important. Now you see they put an Indian Jew up in there to pose as a Sephardic Jew, and we know Sephardic Jew or a Sephardim Jew, however you pronounce that word, are actually Jews on the Iberian Peninsula, which clearly are Negro because the word Negro originated on the Iberian Peninsula. Okay, we must understand that. All right. If you don't believe that they are the Negro Jews, let's go back to the etymology of the word Jew, Sephardic. All right. First, let's look at this. First, look at this. The earliest documented Jews presence in the Iberian Peninsula is often traced to the Roman period during the first century, i.e., Christian era. After enduring hardship under the Visigoths, we know the Visigoths are the same as the Hispanios. Can we go back to the first king, Peleus of Art? What's his name? Peleus. Um, what's his name? Pelagius of Austrias. Okay, he was a Hispanius Visigoths king of Castile. Okay, very very important to understand that. So it says here, after the enduring hardship under the Visigoths, Jewish communities died for centuries under Muslim rule as Al Andalus, following the Umayyad conquest of the Iberian Peninsula, which ushered in a golden age. This is called the golden age of the Jews. Okay, the golden age of the Jews by the decree of Alhambra. Okay, by the Roman Catholics, Spain, Spanish kings and queens. Right there. The Alhambra decree by the Catholic monarchs expelled Jews from Spain, and in 1496, King Manuel the first of Portugal into a similar edict of Jews and Muslims. Okay, now they're not talking about the Sephardic Jews; they're talking about those Jews up here in this picture, or the other one, Ashkenazi, because why would they exile themselves? That don't make no sense. All right, that do not make no sense. Okay, so we have to go back to the understanding the Catholic monarch's influence on the territory known as Spain. Okay, prior to their influence, it was under the authority of what we call the Hispanio Visigoths back in the time of Rome, because the word Spain for in the Roman time was called Hispania. Okay, very, 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 very important. But before we go a little deeper, let's look at the etymology of the word Sephardi. Okay, very important. Etymology. About to get deep. A lot going on through that age of discovery. A lot going on. All right. We're going to get to the bottom of it. All right. The name Sephardi means Iberian or Hispanic. You hear that? Do y'all hear that? All right. So you can exclude Ashkenazi. You can exclude uh um uh what was the name of the other ones? Ashkenazi and Mizraim, however you pronounce it. Okay, you can exclude those because the word Sephardi means the Iberian or Hispanic. So that means that they're qualifying it. Iberian is the landmass, okay, and Hispanic is the what we call the phonic dealing with the language, okay. Hispanic and Iberian pretty much points to the Negro, okay, the Negro, because we know that the Negro is a name that originated on the Iberian Peninsula and Castile, and like we said in Castile, okay, on the island of Spain. So it says the name Sephardi means Iberian or Hispanic, derived from Sepharad, Sepharad, a biblical a location of the biblical Sepharad points to the Iberian Peninsula. Y'all better pay attention. Then the westernmost outpost of the Phoenician maritime trade. Jewish presence in the Iberia is believed to have started during the reign of King Solomon. Did you hear that? You want to hear that? Did y'all hear that? We're talking about Iberian or Hispanics, okay? Whether you want to say it in modern Hebrew or Old Hebrew, Tiberian, whatever other language we're talking about Iberian Hispanics who are Jews, okay? Who goes back to the time of King Solomon, okay? Who excised imposed taxes on the Iberian exiles. Although the first day of the arrival of the Jews in Iberia is subject of an ongoing archaeological research, there is evidence of establishment of Jews communities as early as the first century. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? So the ancient Jews or the Sephardic Jews exclusively, the Negroes, okay, or the Berbers, all right, goes back to King Solomon before they were influenced by who? The Roman Catholics, okay? Very, very important. Very, 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 very important. We know King Solomon goes back to the uh what we call the first temple, the second temple, and we represent the third temple. That's why we call the English Third Temple Church of England. Okay? The English Third Temple Church of England. All right. King Solomon, i.e., a king. All right. He was or created or King Solomon was associated with what we call the Order of Melchizedek. Okay. The Order of Melchizedek. So these Iberian, Hispanic, Sepharad Jews are associated with King Solomon on the Iberian Peninsula. That's very, very important to understand that. Why? Watch where I go next. So the Ashkenazim and the Mizraim are not the same Jews as the Sephardim. So that means that the Ashkenazis don't go back to King Solomon. The Mizraim don't go back to King Solomon, but the Sephardim do go back to King Solomon. And the Sephardim goes back to King Solomon on the Iberian Peninsula. All right, not in the Middle East, not in North Africa, but the Iberian Peninsula. But yet they were still a part of the family of the Berbers. Okay, all right, especially if you're dealing with King Solomon, because King Solomon goes back to Shoshin. All right, who lived in who was born in 943, the same date that King Edgar was born. Yes, Shoshin, or he was called in the Bible Shishak. Okay, let's get it. All right, let's get it. So now we understand that something happened when Spain was influenced by Roman Catholics. All right, because we know that the Spanish Negro Berbers that was over here in North America that were thriving east of the Mississippi River and west of the Mississippi River was distributed through what we call the Spanish colonization or the Spanish conquest under the Roman Catholics from Spain. Okay, so if they invaded here and pushed Roman Catholic on us over here, they must have did it on the Iberian Peninsula as well. Okay, so let's find out if that is the case. Let's see. History of the Jews in Spain. Parts of, not that. Yeah, let's do that first, before that. Let's look at the history of the Jews in Spain, since we know that the Jews in Spain, known as the Sephardi, goes back to King Solomon. Okay? Since they go back to King Solomon, let's look at the history of the Jews in Spain. It only seems right. All right? Since we're the English Third Temple Church of England, let's go back to the Second Temple. All right? Let's go back to the Second Temple. It says the history of the Jews in Spain, or the history of the Jews in the current day Spanish territory stretches back to the biblical times according to the Jewish tradition. Did everyone hear that? Did everyone hear that? The history of the Jews in the current day Spanish territory stretches back to the biblical time according to the Jewish tradition. But the settlement of the organized Jewish community in the Iberian Peninsula possibly traces back to the time after the destruction of the Second Temple at 770 Circuit era, Christian era. That's dealing with the siege of Jerusalem. The siege of Jerusalem. The earliest archaeological evidence of the Hebrew presence in the Iberia consists of the second century gravestone found in Merida. Okay, from the late 6th century onward, following the Visigothic monarchs' conversion from Arianism to the Nicene Creed, conditions for Jews in the Iberian considered worsened. Okay, all right. So when the Jews of Spain goes back to the biblical times, all right, until we get to the time of what we call the conquest of the Iberian Peninsula by Arabs, which is a result of it being called now Al-Andalus, okay? Al-Andalus. But prior to that, it was called Hispania, going back to the time of the Romans, okay? Very, very, very important that you comprehend this. All right? So we see that the Jews in Spain go back to the biblical times, all right, going back to the Second Temple and 770 Circuit era. Okay, very important for you to comprehend that. Why? Because I'm going back to the siege of Jerusalem. Let's go there. Siege of Jerusalem. The siege of Jerusalem was a decisive event of the First Jewish-Roman War, in which Roman armies led by future Emperor Titus besieged Jerusalem, the center of Jewish rebel resistance in the Roman province of Judea. Following a 5-month siege, the Romans destroyed the city, including the Second Temple. Okay, including the Second Temple. We know the Second Temple has to deal with King Solomon. Okay, it has to deal with King Solomon. It's very important that you all make this connection, right? We all make this connection. So if that's the case, we might as well go here. Let's see here. Explosions of the Jews from Spain. Okay? Explosion of the Jews from Spain. We know that the Jews, or the Sephardic Jews of Spain, go back to the time of King Solomon from the biblical era. But apparently we got an explosion of the Jews of Spain. Okay? An explosion of the Jews of Spain. Before we even deal with that, let's go to the Exodus of the explosion of the Jews from the Exodus time. Let's go there first. Because we had 3 explosions of the Jews. Exodus, the explosion of the Jews in Spain, and the explosion of the Jews in England. So let's start with the Exodus first, okay? Let's deal with that. Because we're going back to the biblical era, okay? We're going back to the biblical times because it says the Sephardic Jews on the Iberian Peninsula goes back to King Solomon. Okay, I didn't say that. They said that. They said that. Okay. The Sephardic Jews go back to the time of King Solomon, but yet the Jews were expelled from Spain. Okay? Before they were expelled from Spain, they were expelled from Jerusalem. Okay? And we know that Alfred the Great incorporated the laws of Moses in the Dooms book. Okay? All right? And he was the one who unified the barbarous tribes. Okay? In 886. All right? And we know that he was connected uh, um, to the English kings. He established the laws of the English king because he was actually the founders of the common law. Let's get it, brothers and sisters. The Exodus. You got uh the religious story, which is abstract, and then you got the concrete story, which is the historical proof or the law to support it. Okay, very, very, very important for you to understand that. All right. So all in regards to what we're talking about, the Exodus. Let me go. Let me scroll down here. Right. Right. The Israelites began to one second, let me go a little further. All right. Now we talking about biblical time, and it said that the Sephardic Jews or the Iberian Jews goes back to what we call the biblical times associated with King Solomon. Okay. King Solomon. So we're going back at the time of the Exodus. The Israelites began to complain, and Yahweh miraculously provided them with water and food, eventually raining manna down for them to eat. The Amalekites attacked at Rephidim, but are defeated. Jethro, the father-in-law of Moses, convinced him to appoint judges for the tribes of Israel. The Israelites reached the Sinai desert, and Yahweh caused Moses to Mount Sinai, where Yahweh reveals himself to his people and established the Ten Commandments in the Mosaic covenant. The Israelites are to keep the Torah, the law instructions, and Yahweh promised them the land of Canaan. So this is a birthright, okay? This is a birthright that was promised to those who keep the commandment as passed down by the ancestors, okay? Under what they call the Mosaic covenant. We must comprehend this. We must comprehend this. Let's get it. What is the law of Moses? The law of Moses, also called the Mosaic law, is a law said to have been revealed by Moses by God. The term primarily refers to the Torah or the first five books of the Hebrew Bible. In Anglo-Saxon, they call it the Hexatorah. Okay, they call it the Hexatorah, the five books of Moses. Okay, the law of Moses or the Ten Commandments are called are based upon the Mosaic Code. Okay, and Alfred the Great unified the Berber tribes. Okay, we know that the Berber tribes are the ones who were inhabited not just the Maghreb, but they also inhabit the Iberian Peninsula because we know that the Berbers as well as the Spaniards on the Iberian Peninsula was protecting the landmass from invasions of Arabs. Okay, because we know that the when the Arabs invaded the Maghreb, it was a result of what we call an invasion on those Hispania Visigoth tribes that were composed of Berbers. Once again, when the Arabs invaded the Maghreb, all right, it was already inhabited by what we call the Hispano-Visigoths Berbers ruling through what we call the Byzantine Empire. The Byzantine Empire. Very, 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 very important for you to understand that. All right, let's see. The Doom Book. The Doom's Book. Listen, y'all. Listen. We know Alfred the Great unified all the barbarous tribes. You know the barbarous tribes were Berbers, misnomered as what we call Indians as a result of the Spanish colonization of North America in 1491 as a result of the Spanish influence on the territory which we call Spain, which we get to in a second. Okay. Once we deal with the Jews expelled from Spain, because we know that the original Jews of Spain goes back to King Solomon. Okay. Once we deal with that, then we're gonna go into what we call the Roman Catholic influence on Spain, because we know in 1492, through the Age of Discovery, we switched to becoming Spanish Negro Berbers to what they call Indians, and we know that that's a lie because it just said that they were civilized by the Anglo culture, and we know the 1911 Encyclopedia Britannica says the Anglo-Saxon are Berbers. Okay, they are in fact Berbers. So Alfred the Great Doomsday Book, or the Doombok Code of Alfred, or the Legal Code of Alfred the Great, was a code of law, not just a book, but it was a code of law, dooms being laws or judgment, compiled by Alfred the Great in 893. Alfred codified three prior Saxon codes, those of Ethelbert of Kent, Enea of Wessex, and Ulfa of Mercia, to which he prefixed a modified version of the Ten Commandments of Moses, incorporated rules of life from the Mosaic Code and the Christian codes of ethnics. Okay, the Christian codes of ethnics. Why is this important? Okay, why is this important? Because we see that the Jews all of a sudden now were originally from Spain, going back to King Solomon in the biblical day, but all of a sudden now we have an explosion of the Jews, okay, in Spain. Like we had an explosion of the Jews in the time of what we call the Exodus, okay? And the exodus of the Jews at that time was a result of you not following these damn laws that Alfred Great encoded in the Dooms book. Okay? And if you're not following this law in this present day, i.e., 2975, or what you call 2025, guess what? Guess what? There will be explosion again. This is called what they call deportation, decolonization. Y'all better listen. Okay? Y'all better listen. So let's get to exposing of the Jews, okay, in Spain, since we understand that they were expelled from Jerusalem, okay, the city of peace, okay. We see that because they violated the law of Moses, the law or the code of our ancestors, okay. Very important. Exposure of the Jews from Spain. Let's see. Yes, you can address me by my surname, along with King. You're just saying, are you saying just my surname by itself? Oh, meaning Godfrey or Jefferson? I don't understand your question, Countess Cersei. Greetings, Kingdom, Kingdom. Greetings, Kingdom. May we address you by your surname? Who that question posed towards, Countess Cersei? Exposing of the Jews from Spain. Here we go. Here we go. Once again, the exposing of the Jews from Spain. Let me share my screen. The expulsion of the Jews from Spain was the expulsion of practicing Jews following the Alhambra Decree in 1492, which was enacted to eliminate their influence on Spain's large conversional population and to ensure its members did not revert to Judaism. You hear that? Did you hear that? Once again, the expulsion of the Jews from Spain was the expulsion of the practicing Jews following the Alhambra Decree in 1492. So that means that the Jews were expelled from their own land as a result of the influence of the Roman Catholics. Okay? Of the Roman Catholics. Okay? Not just in 1492, but all going all the way back to when Rome first influenced what we call Spain. Okay? We must understand that. Okay. So it says expulsion of the Jews from Spain was the expulsion of the practicing Jews following the Alhambra Decree in 1492, which was enacted to eliminate their influence on Spain's large convertio. What's convertio? Convertio convert was a Jew who converted to Catholicism in Spain or Portugal, particularly during the 14th and 15th century, or on their descendants. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? So they made sure when we converted, we did not revert back to what? Judaism. Okay? Over half of Spain Jews had converted to Catholicism because of the conversion. Okay? Because of the conversion to Catholicism as a result of the massacre in 1391. Okay? So we were forced to Catholicism. Okay? We were forced to it. We didn't want to do it, but we were forced. In 92, let's see here. Okay, so if the what we call the Sephardic Jew or the Jew who practiced Judaism was expelled from Spain in 1492 as a result of us practicing Judaism, and then as a subject to the what we call conversion to make sure that we didn't practice Judaism, that made sure that we were expelled from our own home. Okay, expelled from our own home. Let's see. So if that's the case, let's go to the influence that Roman Catholic had on Spain, which led to the expulsion of us from our home. Okay? Very, very, very important. Catholic, what is it? Catholic Church in Spain. Let's look at it. The Catholic Church in Spain. Okay? History. You can't make this stuff up, y'all. Can't make it up. Okay, I'm back. Expulsion, mass deportation, whatever you want to talk, whatever you want to call it. All right. So Roman Catholicism, or yeah, Roman Catholicism in Spain. Okay, very important. History. According to Romans 15:28, Christianity could have been present in Spain from very early period. St. Paul intended to go to Hispania to preach the gospel there after visiting the Romans along the way, but there is no clear evidence if he ever made it. After 410 AD, Spain was taken over by the Visigoths, who had been converted to Arianism about 360. From the 5th to 7th century, about 30 synods were held at Toledo to regulate and standardize matters of discipline, decree uniformity of literary throughout the kingdom. Okay? Very, very important that we understand that. All right? Medieval Spain was the scene of almost constant warfare between Islamic and Christian kingdoms. Islamic and Christian people generally lived in peaceful coexistence under Islamic rule, such as Al-Andalus, as long as Christians paid the religious tax and held no weapons in their home, with many instances of interreligious marriage. uh, a marriage of Muslim men with Christian women, focusing on converting masses to Islam through the familiar power of father figure back then. Okay? Very, 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 very important. We're talking about Roman Catholic in Spain. At the time, it was called Hispania. That means at the time, going back to the time of Rome. Okay? Very, very, very important. All the way up to the time of Al-Andalus. Now, we know that the Jews were expelled in Spain in 1492. Okay? In 1492, but we're going back before their expulsion, because when you go back to the time of Al-Andalus, that goes to the invasion of what we call the Iberian Peninsula, when it was already inhabited by Sephardic Jews, okay, going back to the biblical times. All right, it was already inhabited by Sephardic Jews, okay, and those Sephardic Jews were Berbers, okay. They were in fact Berbers because they were composed of the Visigoths and Hispanic tribes of Berbers during the time of what we call the Byzantine Empire. The first one we can make reference to is Pelagius of Austrias. Let's look at him. Pelagius of Austrias. All right. From the 7th century all the way up to the Reconquista, which goes back into what time? Yeah, going up to the Reconquista. Let's read it. Pelagius was a Hispanio Visigoth. You hear that? Not just Hispanio, but a Visigoth nobleman who founded the kingdom of Austria in 718. Pelagius is credited with the initiating of the Reconquista, which means the reconquest of the Iberian Peninsula when it was overthrown by Moors. Okay? All right? The Christian reconquest of the Iberian Peninsula from the Moors and establishing the Asturian monarchy, making him the forefather of all the future Iberian monarchs, including the kings of Castile, the kings of Leon, and the kings of Portugal. Okay, these was all niggas up till the time of the Roman Catholic conversion. Okay, when we had to practice Catholicism instead of Judaism as Sephardims. Okay, if that makes sense to everybody who's on this channel right now, please give me a thumbs up in the chat line. Okay? He was in Hispanios Visigoths, okay, on the Iberian Peninsula, protecting it from Moors who not only invaded the Iberian Peninsula, but they invaded the Maghreb when we were inhabited by Moors as well. You don't believe me? Let's look at it. Muslim conquest of the Maghreb. Let's start there. Make sure you send your donations, your gifts. Conquest of the Maghreb. Muslim conquest of the Maghreb, or Arab conquest of North Africa by Rashidun and the Umayyad Caliphs commenced in 647 and concluded in 709 when the Byzantine Empire lost its last remaining stronghold of the Khalifa to Khalifa al-Walid I. So it says the Byzantine Empire. You hear that, y'all? The Byzantine Empire lost its last remaining stronghold. So what was the Byzantine Empire composed of? And what was there before the Byzantine Empire? Let's see. Look in the box, everybody. All right. Pelagius of Austria, all right, who helped repel back the Muslims through the reconquest of the Iberian Peninsula, was assisted by his family, the Byzantine Empire, okay, which was not Muslims. The Byzantine Empire, all right, going back to Alfred the Great, who unified them in 886, was the kingdom of Altava. Let's see. Was the kingdom of Altava a Berber Christian kingdom? All right, not Roman Catholic. Kingdom of Auroris, a Christian Berber kingdom, not Roman Catholic. The kingdom of Corsinus, a Berber kingdom. All right, as well as the kingdom of Hulda. These were various other Berber tribes and statelets of the Visigoths kingdom. You hear that? The Visigoths kingdom. Okay? On the Maghreb. We're talking about the Maghreb. Okay? But we see that Pelagius of Austria was also a Visigoth and Hispanios Berber. Okay? Because he was defending the territorial across seas from what we call the Barbary coast, all right, or the Berber coast. He was defending the Iberian Peninsula now, okay? We must understand that. From who? Those same eras through the conquest of what we call Reconquista. Let's look at that now. Muslim conquest of the Iberian Peninsula. Muslim conquest of the Iberian Peninsula. Now we're not talking about the Maghreb, because we already established that they were composed of the Byzantine Empire tribes of Berber, all right, associated with the Visigoths as well as the Hispanio, because they go back to what we call Pelagius of Austria, and he was the founder of the Kingdom of Leon, Castile, and Portugal. Okay, and we know that the word Negro originated in Castile in Spain. Okay, which was the territory ruled by our ancestors, who were kings and queens of Spain. Okay, we must understand that the Muslim conquest of the Iberian Peninsula, also known as the Arab conquest of Spain, okay, was the Umayyad conquest of the Visigoth kingdom of Hispania. Okay, in the early 8th century, the conquest resulted in the end of Christian rule and most Iberians in the establishment of Muslim Arab Moorish rule in that territory, which came to be known as Al-Andalus. Al-Andalus. All right. Let's see. So we see the Muslim conquest of the Iberian Peninsula, or Spain, as well as the conquest of the Maghreb, and they were composed of the family of Hispania and Visigoth, and they are originated from the Byzantine Empire, known as tribes of Berbers. Okay, as tribes of Berbers. You must understand this, brothers and sisters. You must understand this. Okay. Let's see. So as a result of uh, the invasion of the Iberian Peninsula, and as well as a result of Roman Catholicism in Spain, and a result of the convertio, we had to convert to what we call Roman Catholicism instead of Judaism, as the original Sephardic Jews who practiced the real Judaism. Okay, we had to convert to Roman Catholicism. Okay, this is very important because this brought in a golden age of the Jews now under the control of Muslims. All right, very important. Let's go there. The golden age of the Jews' culture in Spain was a Muslim rule era of Spain, with the state named Al Andalus lasted 800 years. Who years whose state lasted from 711 to 1492. Did y'all hear that? From 711 to 1492. So we know that the Arabs invaded the Spain, i.e., the Iberian Peninsula or Hispania, okay, in 711, because we know that Pelagius of Austria helped defend through what we call the Reconquest, Reconquista, okay. So if he helped defend it, and we see that the Roman Catholic influence in Spain lasted. Let's go to it again. Catholicism in Spain. Let's look at it again. So it says Christianity could have been present in Spain from a very early period. St. Paul intended to go to Hispania to preach the gospel. So prior to that preaching, that type of gospel was not accepted in Hispania. Okay? Very, very, very important. We're talking about back in the time of the Romans. Okay? All right. So it says that uh, St. Paul intended to go to Hispania to preach the gospel there after visiting Rome along the way, but there is no clear evidence that he ever made it. After 410 AD, Spain was taken over by the Visigoths. Okay, Spain was taken over by the Visigoths, who had been converted to Arianism, and we know Arianism is a Frankish custom or culture versus the French. Okay, and the French were aligned with the Spanish because they all married in together by way of the plantation and the crown. Okay, very, very, very important. You understand that. All right. Let's see. So let me come to my closing. Making sure I don't forget nothing. Okay. Yeah, I think I covered everything. All right. So in closing, let's close out on this. Sephardic Jew. Let's close out on that. So we know that under the Roman Catholicism that came to Spain, all right, we were forced to convert from Judaism to Roman Catholicism that lasted from 711 to 1492, which started what we call the Age of Discovery, which is Roman Catholic Spaniards that made their way over to the kingdom that was over here as well, that was unified with the kingdom over there in Spain, okay? As a result of Roman Catholicism, okay? Okay? Forced upon us. All right, so we must return to our own ways, okay? As Jews, okay? As the true Jews, i.e., the true Negroes, i.e., the true Spaniards, i.e., the true Frenchmen, i.e., the true English, i.e., also known as what? Anglo Saxon Berbers, okay? Anglo Saxon Berber, because it's right here. Where is it at? Let me just start here. Catholicism again. Sephardic Jew. So we see the difference between Sephardic Jew and a Roman Catholic Jew. All right. Catholic in Spain. Let me just go ahead before I close out. All right, right here. According to Romans 15:28, Christianity could have been present in Spain from very early period. St. Paul intended to go to Hispania to preach the gospel there after visiting the Romans along the way, but there is no clear evidence he ever made it to it. Spain was taken over by the Visigoths, who had been converted to Arianism around 360. Where the part I'm going to get to? Convergio. Where's that at? Was that here or was that? One second, I'm looking for something. I didn't mean to do that. Where is that at? Was it Jews in Spain? Yeah, it was in Jews in Spain. Let me get there. Where is it at? Where's it at? Oh, here we go. History of the Jews in Spain. I got two more points I want to make, and then we can move. Then we can close out. History of the Jews in Spain. We know that what resulted from Roman Catholicism. All right, we're gonna see what resulted from Roman Catholicism on the Jews in Spain, i.e., the Sephardic Jews. In closing. Where's that part? That's not it. Is it here? Oh, it's the Alhambra. Okay. Yeah, let me go there. Where is that? Let me just find that. Explosion of the Jews. That's where it was. Explosion of the Jews. Where is that at? Here we go. All right. That's what I'm looking for. Two more. And we out of here. Expulsion of the Jews from Spain. All right. Expulsion of the Jews from Spain was expulsion of the practice of the Jews following the Alhambra Decree in 1492, which was enacted eliminating the influence on Spain's large conversional population and to ensure its members did not revert to Judaism. Conversional means one who converted to Catholicism in Spain and Portugal, particularly during the 14th and 15th century, or one of their descendants. Okay, it's very important of why the Jews were expelled from Spain because they could not keep up their own sacred practices. Then it says the Alhambra Decree. Let's go there right quick. The Alhambra Decree was an edict that expelled the Jews from hold on, edict of expulsion by the joint Catholic monarchs of Spain, Isabella and Castile, Ferdinand of Aragon, ordering the expulsion of the practicing Jews from the crown of Castile and Aragon and their territories and possessions by July 31st of July of that year. The primary purpose was to eliminate the influence of practicing Jews on Spain's large, formerly Jewish conversional new Christian population to ensure the latter and their descendants did not revert to Judaism. You hear that? The primary purpose of the Alhambra Decree by the Roman Catholic Spanish. You hear that? Resulted from the Roman Catholic Spanish going back to 711, lasted to 1492. They said the primary purpose was to eliminate the influence of practicing Jews, i.e., Sephardic Jews, on Spain's largely formerly Jewish conversion, those who converted to Roman Catholicism from Judaism to the new Christian population to ensure that the latter and their descendants did not revert to Judaism. Okay? And with that, we'll close out on the Sephardic Jew. The earliest document that Jews present in the Iberian Peninsula is often traced to the Roman period during the 1st century Christian era. After enduring hardship under the Visigoths, Jewish communities thrived for centuries under the Muslim rule in Al-Andalus following the Umayyad conquest, which ushered in a golden age. However, their fortunes declined when the Christian reconquista, i.e., our brothers and sisters, our ancestors, we try to regain it back. Okay? All right? One of them is Pelagius Austrius, okay? To regain back the Iberian Peninsula from the Muslims, okay? Very, very, very important for you to understand that. So in closing, my brothers and sisters, in closing, appreciate who you are and what you are and what you come from, okay? Appreciate what you are, who you are, and where you come from, because when it's all said and done, when it's all said and done, today you have learned that you once were classified as Negro, not knowing yourself, and you're still classified as a Negro, knowing yourself, because even as Negro, only denoting to the characteristics of your complexion, meaning dark, takes you back to the kings who were actually the kings of Castile, the kings of Spain, the kings of England, the kings of French, the kings of the Berbers. All right, you are one and the same. Okay, you are one and the same, and can no one take that from you, because you are the true Jew. You are the true Jew. All right? But the only way you can become or honor your forefathers as required by the law is honor the laws of your forefathers. Okay? The Mosaic Code was incorporated in the English law in the Dooms book of our ancestors. Okay? So please, one second. Let me stop. All right. So please honor your forefathers. Before I go, are there any questions on the floor? Are there any questions on the floor in regards to this lesson so I can clear it up? Okay. If there are no questions, everyone needs to give me a thumbs up in the chat line. You have learned how they reconstructed the history of the Sephardic Jews of Spain. Okay. You see how they done it? Now it's time to fix it. You see it right behind us. All right. We built all of this, y'all. Frederick Douglass knew it. The European knew it. The Native American knew it. The Jews knew it. The Indian knew it. The only person that didn't know it is us. Okay? It is us. But now you have no excuse. Once again, I always say, it's better for you to not know this than to know this and not follow it, because you will be judged accordingly. Once again, it's better for you to not know this than to know this and not follow it, because you will be judged accordingly. All right? So with that, I guess I, as your king, is going to greet you as I always greeted you, and that is in peace and love. Make sure everyone leave a comment in the comment box, not the chat line. Okay, I want you to leave a comment in the box after this lesson is over. All right, and it's just a short point on how you enjoyed the lesson. Okay, I want to see no logos. I don't want to see no pop-ups. I want to see verbiage. Okay, a couple of words about what you learned today about you being that of the true Jews, the Sephardic Jews, going all the way back to the kingdom of Solomon, okay? where the order of Melchizedek was established, okay, pursuant to the king of righteousness. He built the first temple and destroyed the second temple, and now it's time to build the third temple, which is here. So with that, your king says, peace. Make sure you leave a comment, not in the chat, but in the comment box right after this lesson. If you don't, I'm going to hold you accountable. I know everybody on this lesson right now. I want to read your words, all right? So with